Right now on Tech Radio, another day, another whistleblower.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. Welcome to episode 1060, looking back at the biggest stories of the week, including a breaking story as we record of a Facebook whistleblower book having huge ramifications here in Ireland. There's also a ton of stories. I hope we can squeeze them in about cyber attacks here. And also, you will be shocked and stunned by how little Spotify pay your favourite singers. Let's get into it.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. So Niall, the entire world is talking about this new book from a lady who used to work in Facebook, and she does not have anything nice to say about them.
She has zero F's to give, as the saying goes.
Who is she? And
okay.
Tell me about it.
This is the story of the author Sarah Wynne Williams and her book Careless People, which was released on Tuesday this week. Now, this book is an account of her time as Chief Global Policy Officer with Facebook. She worked there between 2011 and 2017. Left under a little bit of a cloud. Let's put a thumb on that and come back to it later. So the book itself is a first-person account of working at Meta. So this isn't so much a journey about product or what we were doing with data or anything like that. This is what she says is her personal experience of what happened in this massive company as it pursues this sort of endless cycle of growth.
And just to double check, what was her title again?
Yeah, she was their Director of Global Public Policy. So a very high level position.
A very, very high level whistleblower. Okay. And it's causing waves worldwide. Continue, my man.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, it's not about product. It's not about, data. It's not about the nitty gritty of product development. This is more about the culture within Facebook and that eternal chasing of the high of growth, if you will, and the kind of personalities it fosters and the behaviors it instills in people. I mean, personally, I always think that, cities make people a bit crazy. The bigger the city, the more crazy the people, just because you've got people crammed into a small space, and that sort of, I think that has an effect on people. If you can turn that sort of hothouse ideal into a company in Silicon Valley, you can only imagine sort of the high drama that would be involved. So there's a couple of ways of looking at this. You could say, okay, yeah, very interesting insight to a company on the grow, interesting insight into the Silicon Valley pathology that we're stuck with now, whether we like it or not. Or maybe it's a little bit of a fever dream from somebody with an axe to grind. And that is very much Facebook's take on it, because they're looking at it, and this has happened in their official rebuttal through, of course, X, through Threads, where they've had former co-workers come on and say, look, everything that's said in this book is either an exaggeration or it didn't happen. I was beside this person. I knew what they were like. And basically implying that, look, this person was responsible for a toxic work culture and maybe they were seeing things that just weren't there.
Oh, okay.
Gaslighting, some might say.
All right. Well, why are they going out publicly attacking her? Why didn't they just go to court and stop the book from being published?
Well, a couple of reasons. There's one little side note. When Williams left, there was a non-disparagement clause in her contract, which I think is interesting. So it meant that when this book was released, she had to go into arbitration over it to figure out, okay, you've done something now that is kind of, you're in breach of contract. So what are we going to do about this? And an arbitrator said, okay, look, you cannot promote this any further. You cannot publish it any further. You cannot repeat any of the statements that you've made here any further. To which her publishers, which are, they're a division of Macmillan, who are one of the big five publishers. Let me just check their name. I think it's Flatiron.
I know. I can see the logo now. Yeah, a little black and white thing of the building in New York one.
Yeah, and so the publishers' lawyers went, well, basically, do you have any standing to enforce any of this? Because we're not sure you do. This sounds like something you would not have legislated for, and therefore we're gonna do what we will with this book. We're gonna keep pushing it, and I guess the Meta's argument to the publisher was, you didn't fact check this with us. To which, the obvious thing is, fact check what? Like, you just get this thing back and it's just redacted everywhere. Things we don't want to talk about.
Yeah. We sent back 800 sheets of black paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially. All right. So listen, so that's the gist of it. She was working in a very high position. She's written a book revealing all kinds of things about Facebook that they don't want the world to know. They've been to courts. They're attacking her publicly. They're trying to stop her from talking. The big question, Niall, what's in the book?
In the book is, well, I mean, it's called Careless People, so there's a little bit of a something to front up. How careless are these people? Well, based on what we've read, it's what I've come across anyway. It's a mix. It is an awful lot of tabloidy, kind of salacious stuff. Some of it involving Sheryl Sandberg, who was long-serving CEO of Facebook, now Meta. She left the company completely last year after being there since, I think, 2000 or something like that. She was there a long, long time. And also some allegations made against Joel Kaplan, who is Meta's current chief liaison to the Trump administration, which is quite interesting. Meta's argument was that, an allegation was made. It was thoroughly investigated and it was thrown out. There was no merit found in it. We adhered to all possible and appropriate policies, etc. So we can park the tabloid stuff. Some of that will inevitably lapse into he said, she said stuff because it doesn't seem to be any receipts when it comes to that. There are a couple of factual things that are very important, one of which we can talk about now, and two more we can talk about a little bit later. But the one we'll mention now is that Facebook or / Meta at one point was very, very interested in cracking China. Very interested. And why wouldn't they? It's a giant market. However, if you want to do business in China, you've got to do business with the Chinese Communist Party, which means you've got to develop a very different relationship with content and moderation and censorship than you would anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? And apparently, it is alleged that Meta was in fact developing tools that would help strip out certain content from the platform to make sure that only the material up there that was amenable to the Chinese government would actually stay on the platform. Anything else would be stripped away, not published in the first place, all that kind of thing. So you would go from, techno-libertarian Zuckerberg all the way down to whatever China wants, baby. We can make this happen. Of course, it didn't happen, but it just goes to show, apparently, if you believe the book, that discussions were ongoing, and absolutely Facebook would have sold out on those wonderful techno-libertarian free speech absolutist principles of Mark Zuckerberg for a buck.
What, we're going to make money in China? Loads of money in China. What do we need to do? Boom, done.
Yep.
So what else is in the book then?
Okay. So how shady a company do we think Facebook is?
well, let me see. Let's take Ticketmaster and
Oh,
double it.
Oh, shots fired. We are using Ticketmaster as the barometer of
Well,
companies that
it's
suck.
not like Ticketmaster has got a great reputation in this country, does it?
Okay, right. Well, when we
how shady? Listen, how your question was, how shady do we think Facebook is, or what would my out of 1 to 10, how much would I trust Facebook? It would definitely be in the minus numbers.
Yeah, and there is very good reasons for this. I mean, we have a history of whistleblowers when it comes to Facebook. If this was a case of, a tabloidy, human interesty book about workplace culture landing on the market, you might consider it a bit of an anomaly, hoping that it goes away on its own or something like that. But part of the interest we have in Facebook is that they are so lousy with dealing with personal data. We've had the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where you had people's personal data bought and sold as a commodity for political purposes. We had the Facebook files, which was Frances Haugen's experience to do a content moderation and discovering that, guess what, Facebook really doesn't care about democracy. We had Sophie Zhang's work, which was looking at political manipulation on the platform. Again, very much a case of, hey, the money is coming in, let's pretend this isn't happening. We also know that Facebook's own board of oversight is less than, how shall we say, aggressive when it comes to maintaining standards. So is Facebook a dodgy company? They have created their own space for criticism. That's what I will say.
Okay.
They have created a perception of themselves as a company that leaves them wide open for this kind of speculative attack.
Okay.
So their whole argument that, hey, bro, don't think of us this way. Do you know what? You don't have that kind of social capital. People are immediately going to believe this book. And, we have to both sides this as a professional media company. We do have to look at the balanced probabilities as well. And there's a couple of very interesting things affecting Ireland that are in the book that we'll mention a little bit later. But anyway, so does that answer the 0 to shady question?
Yes, it does. Lots of stuff in there. All right.
It rates 3 Ticketmasters.
Okay, so minimum. Tell me, how reliable is this story that's been published in the book?
Yeah, as I said, human interest, tabloidy, a little bit of he said, she said, quite a bit of backlash online of this person cannot be relied upon. So there doesn't seem to be much in the way of receipts. There seems to be plenty in the way of anecdotes. Some of which, I don't want to get into on this podcast. You can read about them anywhere else. They're floating in the ether. Sometimes there's a little bit of a salacious thrill when it comes to reading about people that have been pitched as our betters and turn out to be, not.
Not quite as clean as they would like us to think.
Not as clean and shiny as they would like us to think. But at the same time, one would think that if some personalities just don't mix, and sometimes somebody finds themselves in the wrong corporate culture, or maybe that might be an author of a book, or it might be somebody that is working quite high up in a company and just isn't suited to that level of responsibility. Again, we have to both size this a little bit. I don't know. This sort of reminds me a little bit of, I remember years ago, there was a wonderful book called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls by Robert Siskind. And it's brilliant. It's really, really good. And it's all sort of anecdotes and stories about the new Hollywood movement of the 60s and 70s, finishing up in the early 80s in Hollywood. And I lapped it up. I thought this was absolutely fantastic and full of little stories and insights into people. And I had sort of a lecturer in college at the time who just called it tabloid nonsense. And I think, maybe there's an element of that. Some people will read this book and go, yeah, I recognize this. I see these people in my own work, in my own company. This absolutely rings true. And other people will read it and go, so what, or this doesn't sound real at all. How could person X actually behave this way? That makes no sense. Anywho, let's talk about something more substantive, seeing as...
Well, I want to get into the local angle, actually.
Yeah.
And I suppose we've got to look at Ireland first, because so much of the huge social companies are regulated here in Ireland on behalf of the EU. And then, of course, we have Europe then as well. So what's the local angle from this side of the Atlantic?
Okay, so let's paint a picture. We've talked about Ireland's relationship with Europe and GDPR an awful lot on this show. Usually talking about very, very large settlements, very, very large settlements indeed, that come into the state's coffers, and we're very happy about that. But we also talk about how Europe sees Ireland, because we have such a large tech scene here. We've talked about it over and over.
Well, they all have
on a
the
weekly
headquarters
basis.
here.
They're all here.
Yeah.
So how does Europe see Ireland? Well, they probably see us as being a bit of a soft touch, ultimately, when it comes to regulation. There's too much for Ireland to lose. If Facebook was to up in the morning and say, right, we're pulling out of Ireland, there would be an awful lot of very upset people here. Because they're a very significant employer. Even the likes of TikTok. TikTok employed 3,000 people in Ireland. Now, granted, they're undergoing their own job cuts at the moment, but that's kind of how Ireland is seen, a little bit of a soft touch. But we also are a soft touch because we have a massive backlog of cases, because for a long time, the actual infrastructure to pursue GDPR complaints wasn't there. The office wasn't big enough. We were very slow at getting through the court system. A lot of things were actually just being defined, like how do we actually pursue these sort of actions? And then what happens at European level? Ireland went in front of the European Data Protection Board in 2023. And this was to do with a variation on GDPR in relation to behavioral advertising, right? So Facebook was using our user data as, to retarget ads, basically.
Yeah.
Using our behavior against us, if you will. And of course, you don't know when you're signing up for Facebook. Any normal person doesn't know that's happening, particularly if you have signed up before this sort of practice was the norm. And there are quite an awful lot of people who did. So when Facebook changed their terms and conditions to say, by the way, we're doing this, Europe said, what's this about? And Ireland said, no, it's okay, because they're using a model called pay or okay, right? So pay, Facebook is introducing a subscription tier system. You remember this?
I remember this is where you logged into Facebook just one day and it went, okay, here's the deal. We use your data for advertising purposes, and that's why the service is free. If you don't like it, well, it's going to be €10 a month. Click €10 a month or free.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay or okay.
Yeah. Pay or okay. Ireland went to bat for Facebook, went to Europe and said, okay, look, there is something to this, but for Facebook and Instagram, we're actually going to fine them 36 million and 23 million euro respectively, while we figure this out. We reckon there's enough there to put together an action, but we're not sure that we're all the way there. We see enough for a violation of GDPR, and that'll do. Europe
and what did you say? 36 million and 23 million, which is a drop in the ocean to Facebook.
It's not. They're not even batting an eyelid at that.
Exactly.
To which Europe went, oh no, no. Okay, you have a US company processing European data in a way Europeans are not aware of, and possibly have little control over. So first of all, no. So we're fining Facebook 210 million and Instagram 180 million to start with. And you can go back and you can do a proper investigation and then come back to us again, which is how it should be.
Yeah, with a proper fine to go with it.
With a proper fine to go with it. I mean, what Ireland should have done, let's armchair regulate this, is just come up with a very stringent fine and say, and if you want to appeal it, go to Europe and see how far you get with them.
There you go. That's fair enough. And then that way, Ireland is soft touch or wanting to be the nice guy or whatever, could you just wipe your hands off and you say,
That's it.
we find them 500 million and they're taking it to Europe, well, let them.
Yep. That becomes your business. And hey, if they're favourable to you, good on you.
Grant. Now, there were some other revelations in the book, pardon me, that really concern how Meta was dealing with the Irish government and authorities and so on and so forth. And these were published in the Irish Times. So they are being spoke about in general. I believe one of those was that Meta had a dedicated phone given to it by the Irish government, and that Wynne Williams, the lady who wrote the book, said that they would tell the world that the lapdog, being the Irish authorities, is actually a pit bull, whereas in reality, it was just a lapdog.
Well,
Can you tell me more?
And that's where this sort of scene setting comes in, that Europe does not see us as being the most effective regulator. And we're seeing actions across Europe that are basically looking to circumvent the Irish regulator. And with some success, some cases. Yeah. But
Apple being one of them.
Certainly. I think Apple is a wonderful example of what can be done when Europe steps in and we get to go, sorry, we did our job.
That's another example of.
We did our job. A real world example, by which time Apple is so, wealthy that it's kind of like that. Make it go away. But so, we've painted the picture of how Europe sees us. And this is really damning because not only does Europe see us this way, Facebook even sees us in a less favourable light. Now, I wonder how many of these bat phones exist. Like the government gave Facebook a phone and said, look, if something's happening, if you want something, give us a ring. This is the phone that you use, right?
Yeah.
If you think you're going to take on people, great, let us know. If you think that you're going to be letting people go, well, let us know. We can start preparing a response.
If that's the case, then Elon Musk doesn't have one of those phones.
No,
we know that.
Lost it.
Go on anyway.
So I wonder how many such phones exist. Maybe it's a normal thing. I don't know.
You were saying it like it's a bad thing, and I wonder if it is.
That's the thing. I mean, the fact that Facebook have a direct line to government, I think, is cause for concern, to put it mildly. Shame, cause for shame as much as anything as well. So that's what I'm going to sort of file that under. But the comment that we would tell the world the lapdog is actually a pit bull, like that is, that's, know your place, Ireland. Know your place.
Not the first time I've heard that about an Irish body.
Yeah.
And I must. Yeah, not the first I've heard about an Irish body. So if they're saying that about the Irish government and stuff like that, it's kind of like, all right, or the Irish authorities, I should say, who are looking after Facebook and what they should do. The phone side of things, in my little world, and I do live in a little world, all right, and I've got my little business and and all that. It sounds to me like I would give like one or two of my best customers my mobile number. I generally don't give out my mobile number. All right. But for one or two of my best customers, I'll give them the number if they need something, or if there's something comes up, or there's an urgent matter, or whatever happens to be. Could you look at the phone line to the Irish government in the same light? It all depends on what it's being used to, because if they're calling and they're kind of saying things that they shouldn't do down the phone line, saying, listen, there's some trouble coming our way. Could you do this, this, and this? And then it'll all be solved and no one will know. You can't use it for that. But it's like you say, where they kind of give the call and they say, listen, we're going to have to let 500 people go, bump. Or listen, we're taking on 2,000 people. Whatever happens to be. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, right? Do you think it was one of those Facebook phones that they tried to sell?
God.
Instead of ringing, like, are they using Messenger?
Indeed, or WhatsApp.
They WhatsApp. WhatsApping the government.
It's very interesting. Now, tell me about the book. Careless People is the name of the book. Sarah Wynne Williams is the author. It's the book that the world is talking about, the tech world certainly talking about at the moment. Has it been pulled from circulation? Is it still available?
Still available.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So if you feel like a bit of a little bit of curtain twitching style gossipy humor, go for it.
Okay, so some other things on our radar this week. Niall, of course, we're all watching Trump and the tariff wars and everything's going up 25% and then 50% and then it's not and all this kind of stuff. I thought, I'm just wondering about this, how will the tariff wars affect Apple goods? Because they're saying American bourbon's going to go up, which is made in America. They're saying the jeans are going to go up because they're made in America. However, Apple goods, as we all know, are designed in America, but made in China.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice just talking about a regular story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Isn't it just? I kind of thought about that because like 2, 3, whatever, since Trump came in anyway, all of a sudden, Apple's spending $500 billion to expand their American facilities, is what they call it. So looking after, the silicon chips and content data centers, I suppose, corporate facilities, all that kind of stuff. Still not making devices that we have heard of, however. But they are spending an awful lot to get work back into the States. So that's why I was just kind of wondering, I said, is now the time to go out and buy that M4 MacBook Air before it goes up at 25%?
This makes no difference to us in Europe.
At the moment, it doesn't.
At the moment. If you're in the States, you will be paying 25% extra for your Apple products. Yeah.
Really?
Because they're all made in China. And guess who's got massive tariffs on all their stuff.
True, but do you know what? That's something that's worth keeping an eye on, looking on the Apple American store.
Yeah.
Next month, all right, just to see what is the price of their stuff, because we know the price that it usually is. If you want a guide price, $999, it's $1,000 for a MacBook Air M4, all right? That's the price in America. All right, and that's plus tax. So if it does go up by 25%, it should go up to $1,250 or thereabouts, plus tax next month. We'll see.
Will that tariff show up on the sort of the top line price, or
no?
It won't.
No. You won't see it. It'll just one day it'll be $1,000, and the next day it'll be $1,250.
Right. Okay.
No explanation.
Yeah.
And I don't think the retailers are going to say, "Oh, this is the Trump tariff. That's why you're paying more."
Yeah.
Oh my God, can you imagine if they did? If they priced everything like that? I saw somebody in Canada, just a quick clip of a video, and it was a coffee shop, and they were crossing out. This is what they do. They were chalking out Americano and replacing with Canadiano. So, I doubt if that's a huge thing. But you remember that when, was it the Gulf War? It was the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, I think. And France wouldn't support it. And that's where we got the phrase freedom fries from instead of French fries. That's what's going on in the world. Anyway, with everything that's going on in the world, I was just wondering, will Apple prices increase? So that's an interesting thing. At the moment in Ireland, a MacBook Air M4, I just happen to know the price of that, it's easy to remember, is approximately €1,000 plus VAT of 23%, which brings it up to 1,250 odd, right? Same in the States, it's $1,000. And then whatever the state tax is added on top of that. Okay. So let's next month have a look and see, is the price still at $1,000 plus tax in Ireland and in the States?
Yeah.
Could be interesting.
Yeah.
Other stuff going on Monday. Poor Elonia. A denial of service attack. Oh my goodness. Well, he sold a car. Well done.
He sold a car. Good man.
One car to the President of the United States, his buddy, who can't drive.
Well, doesn't drive because he doesn't have to.
Or doesn't drive, actually.
Probably hasn't driven in a long time.
The President is not allowed to drive anywhere. And I wouldn't say that the Don has driven anywhere ever in his life. Is what I reckon. Now and ever. So Elonia, anyway, and Twitter, had a DDoS attack on Monday that went into Tuesday. He said it was a large coordinated group possibly even a country.
Well, okay. Well, it was a group in a country, if that helps. Now, he was doing an interview at Fox, and he said that they had traced all the IP addresses of the fake traffic that was going to X. Because I noticed this on Monday and Tuesday. I'd log in, and I'd just get nothing in my feeds at all.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, well, this is a bit odd. Something's going on here. And indeed, that was a DDoS attack at work, which is something that I am surprised I haven't seen more of on X. But anyway, initially, Musk was saying, yeah, look, I've got all these IP addresses. They're all coming from Ukraine, to which people were like, oh, God, do you not know how a DDoS attack works? You don't say, it's actually the worst thing to say is they're calling from within the building, because it's like, oh, so you're within the building. Okay, that's great. I know exactly where you are.
From what I read,
the responsibility for the attack was claimed by a Russia-based hacking collective called Dark Storm. And they are in Russia, but they're also pro-Palestinian. So this would have been in retaliation for Musk's support for Israel. Nothing to do with Starlink and sort of support or lack thereof for the Ukrainian people.
Not the first time, though, that he has claimed an attack. Apparently the last time that I remember was, do you remember himself and Trump did a live conversation or a live call or a live conversation or something like that on Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, X. And then not very many people were looking at it. And he went, oh, that's because we had a DDoS attack at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure,
and of course, all the security experts are looking through the logs and whatever. They're going, don't think so.
No, you're just not good at this.
You're just not good at this.
You're just not good at this.
Speaking of cyber attacks and cyber crime, for some reason, I don't know, it's like buses. You're waiting ages and then all of a sudden a whole load of them come along. There's been a ton of different surveys at this particular week on cyber crime. Now, all of them are using different methods and different amounts of people. One survey probably asked 10 people, another survey asked a million, whatever. But we have some percentages and some interesting facts that have come out of it. Well, facts. Observations, let's say.
Yeah.
So, now, for example, right, Irish homes who have actually experienced cybercrime. That's a scary number. What is it?
Yeah, 1 in 3, a little over 1 in 3, 36% of Irish homes have experienced cybercrime. Now, when you think about it, like if you're at home, like how many times in a week do people get rang up by somebody claiming to be from Windows?
Oh, stop.
And saying there's a problem with their computer.
Yeah.
Everybody gets it.
Toll payments or Amazon, your cards, your Revolut card. We get almost nearly one a day. Phone call with an automated voice going, your card has been charged 600 and something, whatever. Yeah. All the time.
So that's a third of households have experienced that. And yeah, that sounds about right.
That's one survey from Insights. There was another survey out this week from it.ie. Now, there we're talking about office workers, okay? I think this is interesting in their survey. They were saying that a certain amount of office workers feel more vulnerable to cyber attacks now than what they did a year ago. And that also is a scary number. What is it?
It is, yeah. 51% of people working in offices are, and when you think about it, an awful lot of cyber attacks come down to human error. It's like there's something in the system, somebody has clicked on an attachment, it's released malware into the corporate network, and that's it. And some organizations are very good at gaming this out by, every quarter or every month sending around a fake email and seeing who clicks on it. And for anyone who clicks on it, they get a finger wagging and sort of okay, this is why we actually do these. Right. To make sure you don't do them in real life, if you will. And I think a lot of people maybe they're hearing stories of their friends in companies where this kind of investment is being made, who probably feel pretty, confident now at being able to recognize when something comes in that they shouldn't go near, versus companies that don't make that kind of investment. And so, jeepers, my company doesn't do that. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
what if something was to come in? It's not a good habit that instills itself. So I'd say there's probably a mix of, people that are particularly accident prone and know it, because we all know people that if there's a bad outcome, they'll find it.
Yeah, true. I think also you've got to look at AI. There was the zero day con was on in town this week, and they had a survey, of course, as well to promote that. And they said that AI has pushed cyber attacks up considerably year on year, and this is why we are getting so many more cyber attacks because of AI. What percentage has it gone up year on year? The cyber attacks involving AI?
Involving AI, still a nascent technology. I'm going to guess 40%.
Hey, we're almost there. 30%.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And that's up a third, and AI has only started automating it, right? When it starts automating and personalizing it, then we've got trouble. But I think kind of in some ways, all of these things are good, because I always like a cloud with a silver lining. All right. And it's becoming more and more of a thing, and people are more aware of it and more wary of it. And they're more suspicious of it. You never hear about Nigerian princes anymore.
True.
You just need to borrow your bank account briefly. All right? You never hear of people buying dodgy Viagra type pills on the internet or whatever, because that has happened so much. So I think the world is changing and people are adapting. Another survey out this week, interesting, about people worry about receiving a cyber attack on their personal devices. That's almost everybody. Well, 3/4 of people. In my book, that's almost everybody.
That's pretty much everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when they're thinking about cyber attacks, personal devices is top of the list. Online scams comes in second at 68%. And this I thought was really interesting, right? 58% of people said that they worry about ID theft.
I would have thought it'd be more at this stage.
Really? I wouldn't have thought it would be as high. Interesting. Okay. Now, back to worrying again. Never mind about those people worrying about the personal devices and online scams and ID theft. Here's something that I am worried about, okay? Guess how many people use the same password on all accounts, according to another survey?
On all accounts.
On all accounts. Okay. So I've got my password, and I bet you it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something, or password, or whatever it is. Well, how many people use the same password on everything?
Oh gosh, this has got to be super low. I mean, in a world of password managers, I'm just going to say 15%.
48%.
That's nonsense.
Of people use the same password on all accounts.
You made that up.
I didn't. What's even worse is the majority of them, because it's only one password, rely on their memory to remember the password.
Oh, who are these people?
Yeah,
we need to stage an intervention.
Line them up, and we'll have a strong word with them. But you mentioned password managers, and here's my last thing from the whole world of surveys this week, the wacky world of surveys. Password manager, only 24% use a password manager.
Right. I mean, they're built into your browser.
Are they built in?
Sort of.
I don't use one. I have one I have one that is built in. Sorry, I have one that is part of my browser, but it's an app. Whereas I don't know if there's one built into your browser. And then I think Google and a lot of people are trying to kind of get pass keys across, but I don't think anybody's getting it. They're just not taking off in a way that you would like. So about a quarter of people use a password manager, which I suppose is a start. 17% use paper. Paper. Do you remember paper?
I know at least one person that does.
Do you know what we use paper for? We used to write checks on paper.
Well, I tell you, it's the person I know that uses paper for their passports misses checks.
All right.
Not going to say any more than that.
No more than that. Last story for you. Some entertainment news, if you like, just at the end of the news. Netflix have announced that their games chief has left the company. And my only interest in this is, why does Netflix have games?
To keep people on the platform.
Oh, for God's sake, how? I don't.
Yeah, I know. I don't care either.
Just beyond me. It's like going into the cinema and having, the oil change in my car. What? Spotify making the news this week as well. They had their Loud and Clear report, and I mentioned this at the top of the show. And we're both very much into music, and we like our digital music and stuff like that, okay? Their Loud and Clear report is something that they do once a year to kind of justify the money that they are paying to musicians and record companies for the right to stream the music. Okay. So they all make it sound blah, blah, blah. So basically one of their facts is that the 100,000th most popular artist. Okay. So you kind of think, wow, that's a lot of artists. Okay. The 100,000th most popular artist on Spotify gets paid in a year for the streams of their music, $6,000.
Wow. That doesn't even cover the cost of recording it.
Now, 100,000 sounds like a lot. Okay. Guess how many? No, I'll just tell you it's quicker. Spotify has 10 million artists.
And only 100,000 are making notable money.
More than $6,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay. And that means that 99% of artists on Spotify are getting less than $6,000 a year. Okay.
Yikes.
Okay. Now, they say that 1,500 artists are earning over $1 million a year. So this would be your Dua Lipa and your
Taylor Swifts.
Your Taylor Swifts and Elton Johns and whoever else, the big names. I bet you David Bowie is on that list. Of course he is. All the big names, right? But when you think about that 10 million again, right? That means that 1,500 artists who are earning more than $1 million, that is 1/10 of 1% making the big money.
So seems to be a trend around the world if you go just down to that percentile. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Do you know what? That is absolutely true, because they do say that it's the top 1% are the biggies, and then it's the top 1% of the top 1%. They're the ones that are the big brands around the world. It's the same in the world of podcasting. Like Joe Rogan is the most listened to podcast in the world. I can't remember who's number 2, but they're a fair bit behind Joe Rogan. And I would say the top 5 of the top 10 podcasts globally easily account for probably 99% of downloads. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Where are we on that list?
Sweeping it up. We're down at 10,000,001.
Okay.
That's what we are. Wait till we get our royalty check from Spotify. I don't think so.
Cha-ching.
All right, listen, Niall, as always, thank you for keeping us up to date with all of the news, and so much of it this week.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
We were supposed to have a special guest on the show for you this week, but unfortunately, they're all connected with a Facebook story and kind of called us this morning and went, not going to be there. So that's fine. And we understand that. So there's no problem with it. So we're going to wrap it up for this week there. Niall, as always, we've got lots of other stories that are happening on the website. Tell me what they are.
Yeah, sure. We've got more on this year's Tech Excellence Awards, which are happening in May. Meredith Whittaker, who is the head of Signal Technology Foundation, has a warning about agentic AI. And that Siri update with Apple Intelligence that we were promised last year. Yeah. Expected in 2026.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Those stories and more online for you at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and an RT Radio 1 Extra. In the meantime, do remember to share our podcast with a friend. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, or of course on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.